We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully your day is going well. It is Monday. We're starting out another week. It's going to be kind of a crazy week. We got Donald Trump back on trial. I'm on the road, so you're going to be hearing a lot of podcasts that weren't recorded the night of as we normally do it. This one, however, will be done Sunday night into Monday morning, and got some good news about this too. First of all, Old Soul is on the show today, but that's not even the best news. Old Soul will be here today, but she'll also be here on Friday. Like I told her, the only thing better than Old Soul once a week is Old Soul twice a week. So Old Soul, thanks for coming back, and thanks for willing to work with me here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So, well, we got a lot of stuff to talk about with what's going on with Donald Trump and such, but what's been going on with you? I think people are just as interested in that, between the wild child, the sucking client, Uncle Cleo. There's a lot of shit going on in your life, and we got to.
It was busy today, so I don't know if they do this in other states or not. But out here, you can rent a theater, like the movie theater. So
Like
they have like a
Elvis.
double feature. Yeah. So the double feature is like $500, right? But there's like so many of us, everybody chips in like 30, $40. We make like hoagie sandwiches, get some chips, bottle some drinks, bring a couple sodas, go, and it's all good. So I was telling the wild child, like, hey, I know that you have like some friends that you meet up at the park, just let them know that we were in the theater for a day, where she's from. They don't do stuff like that. And if they want, they could just come see a couple free movies. And so she's like, okay, but she was kind of like nervous. I guess there's this guy she has a crush on or whatever. And she was like extra time combing her hair, primping. He seemed like a good guy, but he smells so bad. Like you can't avoid it. So my Uncle Cleo, because like my whole family, my little niece, a couple of her friends, their parents, the wild child, a couple of kids in the park, my daughter, her boyfriend, their friends, like we got a whole theater. So whoever wants to come, just come, right? And so we kind of was like talking to him. And I guess there's this new thing that some of the kids are doing. It's like ceremony or haremone or something. I don't know. But what it is
Pheromone,
like
yeah.
we're animals and we have like a natural like smell or something. And so instead of like showering, they just go off of their natural scent. And he is like a super pheromone type of kid. I don't know. It was weird. So he was telling us about it. So I asked him, I was like, so your parents and your family, like, do they shower? Is this like a cultural thing? And he's like, oh no, they shower all the time. But they don't infringe on me wanting to live my life how I want to. And so my honey, he's like, your family, they shower with like soap, water. he's like, he's like, yeah, this is just something that I do. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. So anyway, the kids, they're like sitting down like at the bottom, and the rest of us are sitting up top, and they have like some little kids off to the side. And when he left, she was like, I thought that he smelled like that because like we're at the park and they're like skateboarding and stuff. I'm like, you can't tell the difference between like last week's funk and yesterday's funk. Like he smelled so bad, but she was a good sport about it. We were all a good sport about it. But like, it just kind of reminded me of like Pigpen. Ain't that the one from the
Right,
Peanuts?
right,
It's
right.
just like
Well,
this dusty little kid with all this funk around him. But he's a good kid, other than the fact that he doesn't believe in soap, lotion, that type of stuff.
here's
It's
what I
not for
don't
him.
understand. I'm curious as to what the theory about not showering and not cleaning, that I'm just going to be natural about it. I don't know what the theory is behind that, other than being a lazy slop. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, it's not a religion, is it? It's not some kind of
Mm-mm.
activist. That seems weird to me. Seems
It's
very
just the
weird.
lifestyle that he's choosing to live. I guess for now, I did ask, like, do you think you would change that in the future? And he says, like, the natural smell, the natural scent of a person, I guess other people are supposed to be attracted to that as well.
Well, there is
I,
a
I, I
product that's
don't know.
sold. It's called pheromones. I don't think it even has a smell, but guys put it on to attract women. I always thought, why not just
Yeah,
have a
but he's
good
thinking we could.
personality?
Yeah, well, I guess he's just supposed to be natural, and you're supposed to be attracted to like his natural scent. So when the kids were like left and they're doing their own thing, I was like, told my family like, hey, just let it go because I know y'all gonna start talking about this kid. Let's not do that. I was like, plus y'all know how Bonnie is. Like she always had like a weird friend that was into something different. All kids are different, so I'm kind of used to it. And my brother's like, yeah, but she never bring a stinky kid home, did she? And I was just like,
Well,
he
well,
smelled so bad.
I can
It
add,
was so bad. It was so bad the way he smelled. I was
well, if a
like, oh
teenage
my
kid, I've
God.
had sons, if a teenage kid doesn't shower
Mhm.
for like a couple days,
Yeah,
it's horrific. It's not like, oh God, he's attractive. He stinks. It's bad with a teenage boy. And somebody should tell him
yeah,
that, I can add to that odor story. You know how I've always talked about my granddaughter and she'd come up to me and hug me and go, Grandpa, you smell like meat, and give me a hard time. Well, today
yeah.
or yesterday, my wife and I went to the park and had um, lunch with my son and my granddaughter. And my granddaughter, they're running around at the park. I'm not running anywhere. So my wife got a little sweaty, and my granddaughter remarked about my wife's odor at the point. She said, "Well, I drink coffee and have broccoli too." She goes, "Yeah, that's it." Now, keep in mind, I woke this kid up in bed, and she is sweat from
Yeah.
top to bottom. This kid doesn't smell very well, but she doesn't care about that. But she was giving grandma a hard time about how she smelled. And I said to her, I said, hey, Junie, how do I smell? And she grabs my arm and smells my arm and she goes, pretty good. I go, well, thank you. And then when we go out to dinner, grandma says, would you sit next to me, Junie? She goes, no, I'm going to sit next to grandpa. He smells better. So I got one going for me here now. Everything's, I said,
Hey, at least she believes in equality. Grandma could get it too.
it's not about grandma and grandpa. It's about how bad you smell. And it just so happened I smelled a little better in her perception.
She's
I
too funny.
she is a funny kid. She's a little smart aleck. But this past week it's been very interesting. We've had the trial, and I know you've been watching it. I know you have observations from it, but we had a number of witnesses previous to this week, David Pecker, and then um, Rhoda Graff, who was the administrative assistant to Donald Trump. But the real big news, of course, was Hope Hicks. Um, and I was
Yeah.
curious as to your observations of the Hope Hicks trial from what you've heard about it, or Hope Hicks testimony.
I actually kind of looked at it as a bit of a tragedy as much as I don't like Trump. For him, he doesn't like value people, so he doesn't
No,
really like value like friendships. For him, that's not something that he prioritizes.
right.
But it seems like that is someone that he like kind of cared about and he did prioritize her. I think he must have known that it's not something that she volunteered to do. It's not something she wanted to do. Just something she had to do. She was subpoenaed. She didn't have any choice. I did see him like lashing out, but I noticed that he wasn't like lashing out at her personally, like he does everyone else. He started turning his anger towards other people for some strange reason. What's
Yeah.
her name? From the DC case, he was like talking about her. He brought E. Jean Carroll up again. So even though like what she had to do like hurt him and stung him, he took that and like turned it towards other people. So I don't even think that he was able to face the fact that someone that he saw himself close to, him putting that person in that position. Like I don't think that's something he could face. I think he knows what happened, but I think for himself, he kind of like shut that part off,
Well,
which is pretty tragic. I would have liked for him to to feel that, but
what's
I
interesting
don't think he did.
about the testimony we've heard, David Pecker gave some pretty damning evidence against Donald Trump. Hope Hicks pretty much buried him in her testimony, even
Yeah,
though she didn't want to do it, but he didn't lash out at either one of them. Now, the only thing I can compare that
Mm-hmm.
to, the only thing I can compare that to in my own experience with a narcissist, when I was a little kid, my dad would lash out at us, say the most horrific things. But when my brother and I got to be 16, 17, 18 years old, he wouldn't confront us like that. He would go to my mother and make the
Right.
complaint and make her come to me. And that has to be, you got a 16, 17-year-old kid, big as you, he might just
Mm-hmm.
retaliate. And of course, cowards don't want to be, they only want to be in positions where they know they can win. And when we got older, that was more uncertain. And you have to wonder if he's concerned about something more from Hope Hicks and David Pecker, or because other than that,
Mm-hmm.
it's just other than that, it has to be some sort of loyalty to them for not lashing out at them. And I just don't think Donald Trump has that capability of being loyal to anybody.
No, but at the same time, I think with his narcissism, even when people know things about him that he knows they have dirt on him, that still doesn't stop him from attacking them. He in his mind, like, I'm Trump. They're not gonna air out my dirty laundry. They won't dare do this. They won't dare do that. And so he will, like Michael Cohen, how he slanders him, knowing that Cohen has him on tape. He literally has receipts and everything.
Right.
So it doesn't stop him because he just assumes that nobody is going to come at him the way he goes at them. I do think with those two, it was more of a personal thing than it was like in his brain strategic. He still lashed out, but it's like he couldn't bring himself to lash out at it. Hope Hicks, David Pecker, that might have had some, I don't want him to release some dirt type of stuff. But I do think it was personal with her. I
You
just got
know,
that feeling.
with Hope Hicks, it was interesting. They had a chance, the defense team had a chance to cross-examine her. And they did, but
Mm-hmm.
for a very short period up until the break. And then they're not calling her back today. Um, they asked
Yeah.
her, if Donald Trump was concerned about what Melania thought. And she said, yeah. That doesn't mean that he didn't do it for the election, too. And if he did it for both reasons, he's still guilty. So that doesn't really save him. Um, she also brought something up um, that kind of tore down Donald Trump's premise about what happened here. Of course, he said, Michael Cohen just paid it off out of the goodness of his heart, which is ridiculous. Nobody would do that. But she brought up, and she was asked, do you think Michael Cohen is somebody that's able to do that? And she said, no, he was all about himself in this sort of thing. Because I think people forget now that prior to him going to jail and now turning on Donald Trump, he was a horrible piece of shit. He was just as big a bully as
Yeah.
Donald Trump. He was Donald Trump's pit bull. So I'm not in love with Michael Cohen at this point, even though he's now on our side per se. Um, but when Donald Trump heard Hope Hicks say that, that had to click something even in his fucking delusional mind.
You know what? You're not alone on Michael Cohen because I feel the same. I still look at him as like when he's on the Midas Touch and he has his podcast and all that stuff. To me, I just look at it as another grift for him. Like I just get
Yeah.
those vibes from him. I just don't get like he's just turned over this new leaf and he's recognized the error of his ways. I don't get that about him. And a lot of people in your comment section, they don't get that about him either. Like they don't. So I felt like when someone like I actually responded to someone who was like, I thought it was just me because everyone seems like, he just realized the error of his ways and he went to prison and he got out a changed man. I never got those vibes from him. Like
Yeah.
not at all. But I do think with Trump and the defense, I think the defense knows, but what Trump doesn't know. So it's kind of like the prosecution could like hit the ball out of the park 6 times in a row. And then you'll have the defense come over here and make a point, hit the ball out of the park 1 time. And he feels like, ooh, that's a win. He doesn't count how much of an advantage the prosecution has. So I think in his mind, he may think that she wasn't as impactful of a witness because she said he did worry about Melania. But him worrying about Melania could mean a lot of different things. If I'm on the jury, I would be thinking he's worried about Melania leaving him prior to the election. He's
Right.
worried about Melania writing a book like his first wife done. Like when he's worried about Melania, what is he worried about exactly? So when you're on a jury and you're processing information, you're asking themselves that question. I don't even think that was as big of a deal as what people made it, because him worrying about Melania finding out could ultimately come back to him. Like, if she finds out, how is that going to affect me in the election? Like,
Right.
what's her reaction going to be, and how is that going to affect my campaign? It's
Right.
not like, I love her so much, I don't want her to find out. We all know that's not true. And I'm pretty sure the jury knows that as well.
Well, one of the problems Donald Trump has, he's not the brightest guy in the world. And as I've told you,
No.
no, he's not bright. And as I've suggested before, there's this syndrome that kids with narcissistic parents go through, and I presume employees of narcissistic bosses go through. These people are so prone to blowing up, becoming unhinged, yelling and screaming and firing people and doing things that are just egregious as hell. And it puts people in a mindset, because he's the bully and these people don't have anything to fight back with. So they're just terrified that he gets to that point where he's unhinged. So they try to placate him. And I think this happened all the time he was in the presidency and ever since. They placate him. They don't tell him the whole story. They don't tell him the truth necessarily. And you see that a little bit in Fox News and
Yeah.
such. There are people coming out saying, oh, that first few weeks of trial, the prosecution really blew it. Donald Trump's going to win, which is exactly the opposite of what happened. But I think they sit
Yeah.
around just to keep him placated, telling him lies or not telling him anything. And he's so dumb, he can't grasp it for himself. So I think that's the world that Donald Trump is in currently.
Yeah, what this is kind of like why I like reading the comment section. So how like last week we were saying he's an anomaly when it comes to narcissism, like he's not
Yeah,
smart.
right,
Most narcissists, they're like methodical. They plan their next step. They know how to manipulate people.
right,
But the reason that Donald Trump is able to be a stupid narcissist is because he didn't have to like kind of hone his skills as a narcissist. He didn't have to like learn how to like read people and play off people or anything. He just had like everything handed to him. So he was kind of able to abuse people with his narcissism. He never had to learn a smart way how to do it. Like he just didn't have to do that. So of course he was able to be dumb and be a narcissist because he never had to learn how to do it a smart way. So he still would have been narcissistic, whether he was born poor or not. He just would have known how to go about it better and how to manipulate people better than what he does.
yeah,
It's just like his narcissism is just full on bully. And I think about what's his name? The Menendez, the brothers, their dad, how narcissistic he was, and these little mind games he used to play with his employees and the
right.
people around him. He was kind of like Trump, but he was able to like rein it in, and he knew when to lash it out at people. Trump has like no control at all. So it's just because he was able to just have that handed to him and he was able to force it on people, he didn't have to learn how to do it in a strategic way.
Yeah, you're
So that's
absolutely
kind of, I don't know
you're
if that's
abs-
more dangerous or not, but
you're absolutely right. Most narcissists, their tool of choice is a scalpel, and they're very precision about things. Donald
hmm
Trump's tool of choice is a
yeah,
fucking sledgehammer. And it is that because, like you
yeah,
say, he's
hmm
always gotten away with it. Most narcissists have to come up on their own and try to figure things out and try to make their own money. But he never had to do that. He was little Lord Fauntleroy from
hmm
the beginning when he was born. And anytime something
yeah,
happened, dad bullied and saved his ass. So he's never really had to
hmm
go into battle. It's just a matter of throwing
right.
bombs constantly. And now he's finding out that that's
Like he
not
never
going to
had to
work.
hone, he never had to hone those, yeah, he never had to like hone those skills in. So like if a narcissist fail at something, they just kind of learn from that experience and they know how to manipulate the situation next time. Like
Right.
as they progress through life, like they get better and better at it. Like they hone those skills in. He doesn't have that. He's just been able to be a wrecking ball. And
Right.
it's just the system actually aided him in doing that. His bankruptcies, when he bankrupted other companies, he was never held accountable for any of that. So in his brain, he has the bravado, like, I'm Trump, I can do whatever I want. And so his narcissism came through that way instead of a strategic, smart way. Like, he never had to learn how to do that, which is
Right.
kind of his downfall at this point. It's his downfall.
You know, we were talking about Hope Hicks, and I think I brought this up on the podcast before, or maybe it's on a future podcast. But a lot of people watched Hope Hicks pretty much tear down Donald Trump, throw him under the bus, and bury the motherfucker. And a lot of people tried to compare Hope Hicks to Cassidy Hutchinson. And personally, I don't
Mm,
think there's any comparison. I think they're two different kinds of women, two different kinds of integrity. I question Hope Hicks' integrity because she still supports Donald Trump. And I've always said when he was president, I said, you've been through 4 years, you've seen what you've seen, you've heard what you've heard. If you can still possibly support Donald Trump, there's something fucking wrong with you. You're either a liar or you're culpable.
yeah,
And I think the same thing with Hope Hicks. I mean, she sat there, and in my estimation, at the end of the testimony, when she cried, I think she cried because she realized what she did to this guy she still supports and loves, Donald Trump. And I just don't get that. Cassidy
yeah.
Hutchinson, on the other side, um, was just doing the right thing at the right time. She didn't wait till the last minute till she was forced to do it. She did what was right. And I just don't see any comparison between the two.
No, for me, like, as a woman who's dealt with a narcissist like that, you can either like be submissive, you could placate, or you can just kind of like recognize that and then you can get away from it. You know what I
Right,
mean? And
right,
I look at Cassidy Hutchinson as somebody who just kind of like lived in denial. But then when she realized what was going on, she just like came forward and did what she had to do. Hope Hicks is someone, she seems more submissive and willing to placate Trump. She
yeah,
doesn't have anything within her that kind of like wants to fight back against that. And I'm not sure of what her past or her previous relationships or her childhood is like, but sometimes when we go through things, we find it easier to be appeasing because they're not yelling at you, they're not screaming at you. You just try to make it as comfortable as possible so that you don't have to feel the wrath of that person. And I
right.
think that's who Hope Hicks is. I wouldn't compare her to Cassidy Hutchinson at all. I wouldn't do that. Because if she
She
was, Trump would be like going for the throat when it comes to her.
right, because he went after Cassidy Hutchinson. I think Hope Hicks was trying to save her ass, and I think Cassidy Hutchinson was trying to do the right thing. I think that's the difference between them.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
Yeah,
Hope
it would have been
Hicks,
easy for her to keep the attorneys that Trump got her. But she's like, wait a minute, let me get my own attorneys and get some real advice over here.
right.
So it'd have been easier for her to just go along with the program. But when she decided not to do that, I think that's what separates them, the two of them.
Well, I think the difference with Cassidy Hutchinson, even though she's so young, I think she was smart. She was seeing things that politicians and his inner circle should have seen a long time ago. Back when she testified, she saw how this was going to end up, that it was not going to end well for
Mm,
Donald Trump, and everybody else stood by him far too long because they thought
yeah,
Donald Trump would ultimately save them. And Cassidy Hutchinson knew better. And I think we're finding out that she was right. I mean, all these people will end up walking away from Donald Trump, but it's too little, too late, and they aren't going to get the stink
yeah.
off them. Junie would hate these fuckers because they would stink so bad.
Yeah, you know how you always say like a narcissist looks a certain way when you're further away from them than when you're up close? It's like she was up close, but not only was she up close, and this is so weird. I do not know how women are around his inner circle. Like in her book, when she was talking about how Rudy Giuliani like groped her and how he was acting towards her, like he had free reign to do that with any women that were around Trump. I
Right.
think for her, it's kind of like this right here, what I'm being subjected to, is not worth it. It's not right. And then she could have in her mind too, like, I'm still young. If I speak out now, like, I still have a chance. I think she had people around her who would tell her the truth, and not everybody has that. Because sometimes somebody telling you the truth can really click something in your brain. I think she was just like she was willing to see Trump for who he was.
Right.
And I think there's other people who are still looking at him from like back here, or they're living in some kind of delusion, that I would say, because I'm sorry, like right before this, I was watching that Tim Scott interview. So they're still delusional.
We're going to
That
get
man
to
is delusional. And
we're
I think
we're we're going to
a
get
lot
to
of
Tim
people are
Scott.
delusional when it comes to Trump.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
interested in
Well, I don't know
hearing.
why after seeing January, if you see January 6th, right? What he did when he left all of his supporters go to jail, they're being hunted by the FBI, their family members are turning them in. Trump didn't pardon any of these people. He went golfing. Like after January 6th, you didn't hear anything from Trump. He wasn't getting any business done. Well, he wasn't getting none done beforehand, but he was just out there golfing, just like living out his final days, right?
Right.
So I don't understand why people today think that if they help Trump, that in any form or fashion, he's going to pardon them, help them out, do any of this type of stuff. Like you seen with your own two eyes, he is not going to do that. It's kind of laughable if it wasn't so sad.
Well, and the thing about that question, why didn't he pardon those people or either other people around him
Hmm.
before he left office? And I don't know if it was Bill Maher or if it was somebody on MSNBC. They made a very good observation. Everything with Donald Trump is transactional. He doesn't do anything
Yeah,
unless he's going to get something back. And by pardoning all those people that were sent to jail for January 6th, he didn't see that as helpful to him at the time. Now he's talking
right.
about it. But even though he's talking about it, should he become president again, I still don't think he'll do it. I mean, he'll say a lot of things that he's going to do, but he won't do most of it because it will change when he gets to the point where he actually has to make the decision because he'll look and see how it's going to benefit him. And if it doesn't benefit him or hurts him, doesn't matter what he promised. He's just not going to fucking do it.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it. I don't know. I can't remember who said it, but what they said was like being in Trump's corner right now and just at his beck and call, willing to do his bidding. Your future, like let's say he gets in power, he gets what it is that you're pushing. Your life day to day is going to be dependent on how Donald Trump wakes up and feel that morning. So you never know where, even Fox News, like the only reason we have Newsmax and OAN and all of these other networks is because when they called Arizona, he was telling his supporters, those are fake news. Don't watch them. Go here, go there. These are the real journalists, right? And that's the reason that they ended up in that lawsuit, is because they're like, wait, we can't lose our audience. We got to get them back. We need to start lying for Trump and buying into all of this crap. But it's so odd to see, and these are people who know better.
Right.
And it's I don't know if it's just the power or what, but when you put somebody like that in a position of power to where they have control over you, there is no stability. You
Right.
don't know if today he's cool with Fox News, he could do an interview tomorrow with Fox News and they ask a question he don't like, and that very next day, we want to shut down this network. We want you to go over here. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. It's so up and down when it comes to him. The people who are promoting him, I'm starting to think that in the back of their heads, or they know he's going to lose. And so they're just like, right now, they're just doing whatever to get the views. I don't think they see him as a threat because they don't really think he's going to be in a position of power. Because if they were, I don't think that they would be going hard for him like they are,
Well,
especially Fox News.
well, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm not much of a gambler. I'll play slots, just fucking around or whatever, but they're really gambling hard. These people that are standing strong with Donald Trump, for him to be able to do
Hmm.
something for them to actually get something out of their loyalty and support, two things are going to have to happen. One thing is going to have to not happen, and one thing is going to happen. Number one, he isn't going to be convicted of a felony conviction. That's very important as to whether he's going to be in a position to even be close as the presidency. So he's got to not be convicted, which is virtually impossible in the Manhattan district situation right now. And secondly, he's got to be
Hmm.
elected president, and he's not going to be elected president. I don't know why these people can't see that this is a sucker's bet. You're not going to get anything out of this. You're just going to look stupid when it's all said and done.
Well, yeah, his supporters, a lot of them, there's some of them that just don't care. Like they
Yeah,
know who he is, they know what he about, they just don't care. Either that or they are of the mindset that they like the things that he will do, like kick all of the brown people out of the country and take
right.
away rights and all that stuff, right? So they are down for that. They know who he is and they don't care. Some of them truly don't know better. But when you look at like the networks and the people that's pushing him, they know better and they are like, yeah, he's not going to win. But what they're doing is they're playing with the minds of their viewership because that's revenue for them. So
Right.
even though they know better, even when he was doing the Dominion lawsuit and you got to read the emails and the text messages between Hannity and Carlson and Ingram, like they all knew who he was and what he was about, and they all knew he lost, but they were just playing with the minds of the people that watched them. That is like so evil. And I think they're doing the same thing right now. Like they know better. Personally, I don't even think, and they were all vaccinated and everything, and they had all these vaccinated conspiracies going on and everything. They were like pushing their friends ahead of the line to get vaccinated. But when it came to just like the regular people, don't go get vaccinated. It's going to be a chip in your shoulder, all of this crazy stuff. So they know better. I don't even think these people vote for Donald Trump, to be honest with you. I think that they're just using the people that watch their program.
Yeah, it's
And for
about
whatever
making
reason,
money.
they can go to sleep at night after they do that.
Yeah, it's pretty deceitful and lacks integrity, and they don't care as long as they're making
Mhm.
10 million a year to do it. Also, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. It is Monday. We're going into another week. Old Soul is with us, thank goodness. I've had a busy
Mhm.
weekend or so recording a bunch of podcasts to fill in for the upcoming week. And I'm too old to be doing that much work. You know me, I'm lazy as shit. So I'm going to have Old Soul. I know when Old Soul comes on or Ed comes on or somebody comes on, I have to talk about half as much, if not less. And it just makes it so much easier for me. And they're so much smarter than me that I look good as long as they keep spewing the smart stuff that I maybe don't even grasp. You know, Old Soul, I wanted to talk about this past weekend because Donald Trump heads back into court today. And over the weekend, he was still having trouble holding his mouth. And I found it interesting. He was at a fundraiser. He was charging people 40,000 a head to go see him. And fucking people paid it. I don't get it. And then he said, "Well, let's have a blue light special here. If you want to come up and talk, I'll let you for $1 million." And fucking people did that too. Not many, but some. But it was interesting what Donald Trump was saying at this little fundraiser. You can see it's getting to him a little bit. He's becoming a little more unhinged. He said that the Joe Biden administration is a Gestapo administration. Now this is a guy who says he's going to be a dictator. This is a guy who caged
Yeah.
children on the border. This is a guy currently saying that he will deport 20 million people. Yet Joe Biden is the fucking Gestapo. Talk about projection, huh?
Let's not forget about the camps that he's promising.
Oh yeah,
Let's not forget about him, talking about shooting shoplifters. Like, I don't think you should shoplift, but I don't think you should get shot for it.
right.
What kind of deterrent is that? It's everything with that man is projection, everything. But I don't think that some of that stuff is projection. I really do think that Trump has no idea at all what it is. Like he just don't know.
I agree.
He doesn't know what that is. I don't even think he knows what it means with the blue and the red lightsaber, like Luke Skywalker with Biden and the blue lightsaber. That means good, and the red means evil. So because Joe Biden had a blue lightsaber, Trump has to come out with a red one. He has no idea what that means. No reference point at all. He's just like, I have to be the opposite, and that's going to be better. He does. I think a lot of stuff he's just an idiot.
Well,
But with the Gestapo part, I do think I think that's projection. I think that's projection.
it is projection, and you make an interesting point there. I think that Donald Trump is more dumb than he's evil. I think that he says
Yeah.
whatever comes out of
Mhm.
his mouth. There is no thought process about it. It's not an evil plan to destruct America. It is just simply going the opposite of what Biden might go, or just saying something that is in line with his bullying nature. Oh, you're going to do, I mean,
Mhm.
it goes back to, well, if you hit me, I'll hit you 10 times harder. That is the essence of a bully. And so I think that's what
Yeah.
it is. When you hear him say some things, um, early on, I would say, yeah, well, he can't possibly mean that. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. And I don't know if I could say he didn't mean it, but he didn't know what he was saying at the time. I mean, he implicates himself so much in this shit that it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that it comes out of his mouth, and then you get Republicans trying to back him on it. It's, I mean, it's truly amazing that smart people will listen to something said that's stupid, and then they'll try to support it. That takes some fucking work.
Not only try to support it, but justify it and make it make sense. Covering for Donald Trump is like a full-time job with time and a half. Like it's crazy. But he kind of like one of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump. Like I just love that movie. But one of the more fascinating things about Forrest is he stumbled into a lot of his greatness. Like when he was at the White House and he had to use the restroom, like that whole like he just stumbled into these things. And
Right.
I think that's kind of like the same thing with Trump. Like a lot of things that happened as far as him like being in the White House and all that stuff, like he just stumbled into this stuff. He had help, but it just had to be a series of circumstances in order to get him there. And I think that him and his supporters, they mistake that for some kind of like 3D chess that he's playing and he's a head above everybody else and all this other stuff. Like, no, that's not what it is. It was like a horrible like storm that got him to where he is. But it's just kind of like now everybody sees the storm, but not only do we see the storm, but we have plenty of time to prepare for it. That
Right.
wasn't the same thing in 2016. So they are looking at that series of unfortunate events and not realizing, like, let's say instead of Hillary Clinton, it was like Gavin Newsom or somebody like that,
Yeah.
there would not have been any Trump. Like it literally had to be this perfect storm to get him to where he is. And they look at that as greatness. And I don't know if that's just ignorance, if they're in denial, if they don't quite get it. I know with Trump, he thinks that was just like the greatest thing ever. And
Right.
he never even acknowledges that he lost the popular vote, because you would have to know that if it wasn't for the electoral college, this wouldn't even been an option. So
Right.
I think that they're looking at it the wrong way, and that's where they get that miscued confidence from.
I don't know how spiritual you are, but there's some part of me that thinks whatever greater power there is over the world, that Donald Trump was intended to be a little bit of punishment and a wake up call. All right, I'm tired of your bullshit.
Mhm.
We're going to set up some series of events that put you in a bad position. I mean, I've seen this in my own life where
Yeah.
you go through bad shit only to come out the other side having learned a lot and going on to better things. And that's why I think that's what we're going through in this country. But It
Yeah.
seems Donald Trump becoming president and all the following things that happened, it almost seems set up. It's like a bad movie to teach a
Yeah.
lesson or give a moral at the end. And that's what it seems like.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, just like as a country, America was just like so arrogant and so privileged. It's like America, we're great because we're great. We don't need free health care. We don't need to feed our children. We don't need our kids to afford to go to college. We're great because we're America and we're great and everybody wants to come here. It was just like this arrogance and like this air about us, like we were just above everything and everyone. And it's just kind of like now we know that, yeah, it can happen to us too. You know what I mean? Like when we sit there and we look at Russia and we see them being under Putin's rule and how he is, before it's like, oh, that can never happen to us. And then we turn around every single day and we're reminded that yes, that can happen to you. Um, I do think it was a wake-up call. I do think it kind of humbled us. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us in ways where we wouldn't have been humbled otherwise.
Right. You know, it's funny when, as you were just saying that, I was thinking about this. Donald Trump thinks the strength in America is how powerful we are and how rich we are, which parallels his own situation. I'm the best because I'm powerful and rich. And that may work in
Hmm.
business, but when it comes to a country, a government, there has to be some compassion. There has to be some working for the people in the middle class in order to run this operation. He didn't need to do that when he was in business. It was all about self-aggrandizing and self-enriching himself. Uh, so he tried to translate that into running the country, and clearly that doesn't work.
Yeah, but when you think about it, when Trump says like he's rich and he's powerful and he's all these things, isn't that kind of like a symbol of America pre-Trump? Like we had the illusion of being like rich and powerful and we can't be touched. Like
Right.
that was an illusion that we had, which is the same illusion that he has about himself. So it wasn't like unknown. It was just like an illusion that we didn't know was an illusion until that fool got up there. You know, like when you look at other countries and you see that they do have a single payer health system, which my daughter's like, start saying single payer, don't say Medicare for all because people will look at it different. So a
Right.
single payer health system and affordable college and all these other things. Um, we're at a position now where we have to look at that and say, well, we're not number one in healthcare. We're not number one here. We're not number one here. So we can actually see the faults within ourselves. That illusion that Trump had, that illusion has been cracked, but it also cracked the illusion that we had about ourselves as a country as well, which is
Absolutely.
kind of, I
That's
didn't think about that till you said it.
I didn't think about it till you said it. No, it's true. He pretty much blew up the illusion or
Hmm.
delusion for both himself and this country because, you know, our country isn't the greatest country in many ways. Um, I think
Hmm.
personally, if we're fortunate enough to have what happened, what's going to happen is what I suggest. Joe Biden, the president, we get control of the House, we keep control of the Senate, maybe even expand that. Um, we have a window of time to rectify some of the problems of this country. And Joe Biden
Yeah,
and Congress need to get on their fucking bicycle and start getting it done from day one. No wait until 2 years later, like Merrick Garland. Oh, we'll wait till the midterms. No, fucking day one, January 21, you need
yeah,
to start fucking passing bills.
yeah. You know, like I think that's the best part of being like woken up from that illusion that we were under, is because like once you wake up from it, it's hard to go back to the way that it used to be,
Yeah,
where it was just like, you know, it was accepted that corporations didn't pay their employees a living wage. Like there was just so many things that was just accepted. But now that we are aware of it, especially with like my daughter's generation and younger, but now that we see it and we know what it is and we recognize it, it's going to be pretty hard to like go back to business as usual. because a lot of that stuff we just didn't really pay attention to, and we thought it was okay and we thought it was working for us, but now that we know that it's not, nobody wants to go back to that. So I do think, like, out of all the chaos and drama that's come with Trump, if you can take that part of it, it's a good thing that we can propel ourselves forward and not slip back into those old ways, because those old ways is what got us to where we are, like, right now today.
Right.
The fair doctrine that you were talking about, like, we need to get that back into the media. People need to know the difference between an opinion show and a news show. Like,
Right.
they really need to know that. In Congress, they should not be allowed to just sit there and lie to the American people with zero consequences. So I do think a lot of that stuff that we just kind of let roll, it's not going to be easy to just let that roll again. Especially with Trump, a lot of people are like, yeah, there is a two-tier justice system and we don't like it. When we sit here and we watch him just run roughshod over it,
Right.
it's not going to be the same after that. And it shouldn't be the same because it was so convoluted before that. We just, for like ostriches, just buried our hands in the sand and like let it be. I
Right.
don't think we're going to go back to that.
Well, and I think once they get control, the first three things they have to do is codify Roe v. Wade, try to bring back the fairness
Mhm.
doctrine. People will say, "Oh, it's only the media." Well, the media is a big problem in this country because we've got different sets of people
It is.
with different ideas of what the facts are, and that's why we're divided as a country.
Mhm.
So that is important. And then there's the Citizens United, which allows people to use as much money as they want to push their agendas. So the wealthy can do whatever they want. The poor and the middle class can't do anything. That whole thing where a company was a person and all that, that needs to be stopped. That needs to be ejected from this country because it works just the opposite of what we want. We don't want money to
Yeah.
take a big role in our elections. Republicans do because it works to their advantage, but we need to get that out of the fucking mix too.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's like, I agree 100%. I really, really do. I think there's some people who are, I think there are some kind of like not Trump supporters, but they're still Republican or whatever. I think an independents, like those Nikki Haley voter type people, I think that they will vote for Biden with the hopes of it going back to the way that it was
Yeah.
because that worked for them. But just because it works for you doesn't mean that it works for everybody. And
Right.
I don't think that's what America is about, only a small percentage having the upper hand. And then I think we can see the benefits of it just as a country as a whole. Because like when you look at like right now, the crime rate is just like drastically dropping, like just drastically dropping.
Right.
And that could be because when you give people jobs and they have benefits, they don't need to go out and steal and commit crimes. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that people, when they look at the crime rate going down and they are trying to figure out why it's happening, like, people do wanna work. They wanna have a job. Even people who get out of prison, they want a second chance to be able to provide. But when you're telling them that nobody is gonna hire you, it's kinda like putting them in a situation to where my children are hungry, Imma find a way to feed them.
Right.
So I do think we can see that real time when you build America from the middle class out, from the bottom up, it benefits us as a whole. But not only that, people have money to go and spend it on your stuff. If people don't have money to spend on your stuff, then you're cheating your employees, you're taking shortcuts and doing all of this other crap. You don't need to do that when people have money to like legit invest in your brand. But I think a lot of people are seeing that. I know I'm seeing it. Like the crime rate going down, yeah, because people got jobs now. That's a
Well,
difference.
yeah.
That's a difference.
And I think the short-sightedness in the wealthy people and the Republicans is this. If the middle class makes more money, two things happen. They pay more taxes and they buy more shit from the wealthy corporations. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, it's like I don't know what you would compare it to, but you're cultivating your crop so that it yields well. And you could kind of look at the middle
Yeah.
class at that, make them wealthy or make them comfortable so that they feel comfortable in going buying new
Hmm.
cars, which is a problem these days, or make them put them in a position where they can afford schools or healthcare and that
Right.
sort of thing. As they make more money, they're going to pay more taxes going back to the government. That just seems like common sense, but for whatever reason, it's short-sighted. I want all of it and I want it now. And I'm not going to be happy until everybody else is broke.
Greed.
That's a short, yeah, it's absolutely greed. And it's short-sighted because that greed will end up killing you too.
Right. I think that they look at it as the more that they have and as less as it is for everyone else, they're easier to control. Like I
Mm,
have all the money. So if you are desperate enough, you will work for $7 an hour. If you're
right.
desperate enough, then you'll work extra hours without getting paid overtime. If you're desperate enough, then they look at it that way instead of looking at it as, well, we could all benefit from if everybody is doing good. They don't look at it as that way because they're so greedy. They want to keep everything to themselves. Like they don't want to pay taxes. They don't want to pay people's health insurance. They don't want to pay people a living wage. Like they don't want to do it. They just want to offer themselves to make you desperate enough so that they can just control you into doing whatever it is that they want you to do. I think that's how they're looking at it, which I've never been a greedy person. I don't get it, but I do know people with that mindset though.
I think you make a good point there. It is greed, but it's not just greed of money, it's greed for power. So
Hmm.
that makes sense as to why they try to run us into the ground because they just want power and they want a bunch of, royalty and serfs just doing their bidding. That's what it is. It's control. I wanted to bring something else up. We talked about Donald Trump's fundraiser, and he collected all this money. He got a little unhinged. You know how he's calling Jack Smith a thug and a criminal and all that stuff. He took it a step farther during this fundraiser and he called him a fucking asshole. Have you ever imagined a president, a former president, a candidate calling a district attorney or a federal prosecutor a fucking asshole? I mean, it just seems it just seems crazy. But my point is at these fundraisers, because I know you had some thoughts on one particular person, you got all these little fucking Trump fuck little hangers on now crowding around Donald Trump, hoping to be his vice presidential candidate, which I don't know why you would be because you're going to get your ass kicked. But one of those guys is Tim Scott. And I know you have a little crush on Tim Scott. No?
Stand there, bitch. The wild child, she asked me the other day, I forgot what she was watching, but she was like, who taught him that word? And I was like, who are you talking about? She was like, Trump. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you could tell when he learns a new word because he keeps using it. And she kept saying conflicted, 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 conflicted. I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. She's like, who taught
That's
him that word? I guess he just uses it so much now, it just gets on her nerves. But
she's right. He does get a new
I'm
word every week or so.
I'm surprised that's not what he was like throwing around all day at the fundraiser. But I do Tim Scott. I seen him on Face the Nation, I think that's what it was. And
Yeah,
I don't know why they asked Tim Scott this. I don't even know why they're asking Donald Trump this. They know that these people are going to follow Trump's lead. And previously in 2020, these people were like, well, if Trump doesn't think that the election was fair, he has all these legal avenues. Once he exhausts those avenues, then there will be a peaceful transfer of power. Like that's how they sold it to us, right?
right.
But now they won't even agree to that. Like I think she asked him like what 6, 7 times. Will you agree to a peaceful transfer of power? Will you agree to a peaceful? And he would never say it. Oh, Trump's going to be the winner. He's going to be the winner. And if he's not the winner, well, he's just going to be the winner. Like he sounded so programmed. Just me watching him as like a black man. I'm like, wow,
Well, he's a
that is
coward.
so embarrassing. He, he's not invited to none of the cookouts like
Yeah.
ever again. Tim Scott, that's over. He done. We don't claim him.
Put
But
it
what is going on is
put it
Trump
put it put it
is
put it this way.
having them.
If there's a cookout, I'll be there and I'll be given the job of kicking Tim Scott out. That's what's going to happen.
He ain't even gonna make it to the grass.
Yeah.
As soon as he come to the curb, you gotta turn around, homie. I think what's happening with what I'm seeing is happening is he has all of these people that's bidding for VP. Um, they're having to prove their loyalty to him. I don't know. To me, not only is it career suicide, right? But you see what happened to the last vice president. Why are you putting yourself in that type of position? It's
Yeah.
just it's almost comical. But what it is it's like a loyalty test. You have to make sure you get his talking points out there. You have to say it with your chest out with some conviction. And you have to do whatever you can to make Trump sound as good as possible. And Trump is delaying and he's playing all these little mind games with them to keep them jumping through these hoops. Not only that, but to keep them fundraising for him, to keep them on television talking about him. So the longer he can push this out, the more that they benefit him. So why have one VP pick and have all of that coming from one place where you can just like whisper in like 5, 6 people's ear and
Right.
have it coming from 6 different directions. So
Well,
that's all he's doing is like playing with them. And they are just out there jumping through hoops, bending over backwards, running
and
through the obstacle course with glee.
this is his mental disability here, because above everything else, he needs the adulation, the pats on the back. And now
Hmm.
he's got these people bouncing around doing whatever they're doing, hoping that Donald Trump will choose them for the prom. I can't wait to see Tim Scott's prom dress come the coronation of the VP. It'll be absolutely lovely. I still think that Donnie may insist that he get a fake girlfriend. That may be needed. So if you get a call, I mean, everybody else is calling you. Yeah, old soul, Tim Scott needs a favor. We need you to be his beard. I'm guessing you turn him down.
He like, who? I don't know no Tim Scott. It's just, but they're all doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but I do think a part of that too, it comes from desperation. Because at one point, these people were like name brand figures in the Republican Party. But now, since MAGA's come on the scene and you got Marjorie Taylor Greene over here sucking up all the oxygen, they went from name brand to generic. So they're
right.
trying to stay relevant. And I think that they think this is the best way to stay relevant when it's not. Because if it was me, I would just kind of like hang back and then like let this play out. And then I would be able to step forward. Like, y'all didn't see me going hard for Trump. Y'all didn't see me going hard for MAGA. It's a lot easy to reinvent yourself when you don't put yourself out there like that. But when you put yourself out there like that, it puts an image of you in people's mind that don't need to be there. And it's going to be that much harder to like get from under that shadow. And I don't think any of these people are going to come from up under that shadow. They're just not going to. The easiest thing for them to do is just to fall back and let the chips fall where they may, and then step forward with whatever excuse it is that you want to give.
I
But when you tie yourself to Trump, and you're out there going like this is on video camera. People can replay this 30, 40 years into the future. I don't
right,
know why they don't understand that. It's not going to disappear.
right.
But these are all people who I wouldn't mind seeing go to the wayside.
Well, and it seems like any of these people that want to be vice president are in a race to find out who's most despicable. We had Kristi Noem, the governor of
Yeah.
South Dakota. She writes a book and
Mm.
says, "Yeah, I killed a worthless puppy with a shotgun." Like that's a flex. And then she gets called out on it because it's horrific. And she doubles down and triples down. And she thinks she's saving herself by saying, "Well, I killed some goats and a horse too." Fuck. And Donald Trump derides her, but then forgets about it. And now he's hyping her up again. She literally could be the vice presidential candidate, and every commercial will be her shooting a fucking puppy. It's just unbelievable to me how she even thought. I mean, who's editing that book that says, "Oh, this part you shot the puppy? We should probably take that out." No, that one shows I'm strong.
What's her name? Eric Jr., his girlfriend, the one that used to be with Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
The
what's her
one
name?
that looked Yeah, she looked like she just like woke up from a casket. What is her name? Anyway, so she was like, I guess her and Christy Nome was like cool with each other, and she couldn't bring herself to say anything bad. So she's just like, I don't know, maybe somebody snuck that in a book and she didn't recognize
Oh
it.
yeah,
It's just
somebody.
kind of
Uh,
like they don't have the ability, like they're not supposed to admit that they made a mistake. They're not supposed to admit any error or anything because that's seen as weakness within the Republican Party. Like it's a lot more difficult to like come forward with a sincere like, yeah, I didn't really realize how bad that was. I do apologize, blah blah blah. It's just like you have to double and triple down on it. And I think her doubling and tripling down on it is earning her respect within Donald Trump because he
oh, I do
knows
too.
no matter what he does or says, she's going to double and triple down on it. And that's what he's looking for.
Well, the name you were looking for, Don Jr.'s girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who at one time
Yeah.
was kind of a normal looking human. She was even married to Gavin Newsom, for God's sake, and that'd be the first question I'd ask him. I like you for president, but fuck, what were you thinking? Anyway, Kimberly Guilfoyle. I've said this before, and I thought it might get me in trouble, but I'll say it again because I don't give a fuck. Every time I look at that woman, I'm a little frightened, and I think of that song by Aerosmith. Dude looks like a lady, or the lady looks like. I mean, she just there's something off about her. I don't know what it. And I'm not deriding transgender people. I'm deriding her because she's such a creepy, fucking horrible human being.
Well, I was looking at her like when I was like younger, I would have to sneak and watch this show because my grandmother wouldn't let us watch it. It was Tales from the Crypt, and I
Yeah,
swear to God, she looked like that little dude when he's sitting up out of the casket. Either that or just like how people don't realize that her and Don Jr. are like on some hardcore stuff is beyond me. Like you can look at them and it kind of like reminds me of like a rock star couple that has
yeah.
just gone way too far.
Uh,
And it's just kind of like they put themselves in a bubble to where I don't know, like I don't even know how people around them don't tell them this is not going to end well. That is
right.
just like an anti-drug commercial, like walking and talking every day. It's pretty sad to see somebody like go from this to that.
Well,
I, I'm speechless with that one.
between Stephen King and some top shelf director, they got to say, I don't know if she can act, but we got to put that bitch in a movie because she is scary as fuck. And then put Don Jr. as some dupe bouncing around, bouncing off the walls because that guy, you're right, he's definitely on something. You know it. When I look at her, I looked at the pictures when
No
she was
makeup, like no makeup needed at all.
no,
Like
no.
when she arrives on set, she looks the part. No makeup needed. Just just put her out there.
Well, the thing is, if
We
you
get in
look back,
trouble.
if you look, yeah, if you look back at the pictures when she was married to Gavin Newsom, she was kind of an attractive woman, and now you see her as she is now. It's
Yeah.
like those things on the internet where they show pictures of people before and after crack cocaine, and it's just fucking light years away. Now,
It's like it's like those glow up reels, like but in reverse. You know what I mean? Like instead of glowing up, she glued down or something. I don't
what
know.
the fuck filter does she have? Jesus Christ! But
And
and
why she
so
got to use what? What's the Carrie Lake? Lake needs to let her know, hey, this is the filter for you. Like, get your filter game up because we don't need to see this.
yeah, Carrie Lake looks relatively normal, but that soul is ugly as fuck. Clearly, some people will come to this and make comments and say, "Well, you shouldn't look shame people." Fuck you. She's an evil person, and I'm going low. If you think I'm above that, you don't know who I am. Now, now, just to protect old soul, she's a lovely woman, very compassionate. And if you're mad at her about this look shaming thing, just understand I sucked her into it. I made her do it.
No, you didn't. I got
Okay.
eyes full of them right here, and I can see that woman's ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugly, physically and morally. Well, also, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast for this Monday. I appreciate you coming on. We got a special treat. Got a special treat. It's going to come later in the week because Old Soul is going to be on Friday of this week. Now, you have to understand what's going on. This has a lot to do with logistics and the fact that I'm lazy. I was going to talk to Old Soul and run the show on Friday, but I thought, Old Soul has some serious impact on what's going on and knowledge about what's going on. We need to get that right now. And so I talked her into doing one show, this show, then stopping, and then doing another show that will air Friday. But this is going to be a special treat because people don't know this. Every time we do a show, you and I probably talk for another hour off recording. So the show on Friday
Mhm.
will be basically the Old Soul after show. And it's going to get
Let's
crazy up
get
in
it.
here. Let's get it. Let's get it. All right. Old Soul, thank you for joining us here today on this Monday. We'll look forward to Friday. For those of you listening, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I We'll be back tomorrow, and we're looking forward to talking to you again. So stick with us. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday. Now, I have to give you some information about this Friday show. This Friday show was recorded last Sunday. So, in as far as what's going on in news, we don't know. But I will hopefully be doing some additional shorter podcasts to update the current events. But I'm on the road in Key West and Miami. I don't know what my flexibility will be for recording every night like I normally do, so I'm doing this instead. You heard a number of pre-recorded things with Ed and Jace and Eric and Old Soul. So you're going to have to deal with this. But the good news is Old Soul is back with us, and as I've said, nothing but the only thing better than one Old Soul once a week is Old Soul twice a week, and she's agreed to do this. And what you have to understand is we recorded the show for Monday, and that went up. This is still Sunday. After that show, we are now recording another show. And why that's special is because it's something we've never done before. And this is basically an Old Soul after show. And the reason I think it works is because every time we do a show, we can go an hour and a half and we'll sit and talk for another hour afterwards. So
Hmm.
this show will have no direction. It'll just be me and Old Soul talking shit about relevant things and irrelevant things. It doesn't fucking matter. So Old Soul, thanks for sticking with me. This makes my life so much easier and I appreciate it.
No, thanks for the disclosure. Now people can know that I didn't wear the same clothes for the whole week.
Me too. Me too. Oh, that Mike doesn't change his fucking clothes or he rotates them really quick. Yeah. Well, as much as we don't know what's going on in the trial and all that stuff because of when we're recording this, we do spend a lot of time talking about your life because you're pretty active.
Yeah.
You do a lot of things that most people can't or won't do. And you work with a lot of young women who are in need of reproductive health care regarding abortions and that sort of thing. Women come to your place um, because they live in a state where it's illegal and they need to get the procedure. So they come to Nevada where they can get the procedure. And Old Soul has done to allow these people to come in and stay with her so they don't have crazy expenditures. And as far as I know, you have two women living with you right now that are in that situation, correct?
Yeah. When she's getting ready to leave tomorrow though. Tomorrow early morning, which I don't mind the early morning flights, especially on Mondays, because I can just drop her off and then I can come back home and just like chill for a little bit. But I have the wild child here, and she's still homeschooled, so
Well, that's the
I
thing.
don't get
What?
to just like
How long has the wild
I don't
child
get to
been
just feel
there?
by myself so long.
How long has she been there?
Oh man, she's been here for a while.
Yeah.
What, almost 2 months now, and she's not leaving till the 16th. So yeah,
Well,
she's been
that's the
here for a
thing.
while.
You've
I'm gonna
got.
miss her when she's gone, though. I am. I'm like, I'm gonna miss her when she's gone. It's not gonna be easy. So
That's what I was going to get
yeah,
to. But when you said you've got one of the women that's staying with you leaving tomorrow, common sense would say that's got to
yeah,
be the wild child. She's been there for fucking ever. But it's not. She's
mm,
there for another 10, 12 days. This is another
yeah,
woman who came in who was a little less um, time intensive as the wild
yeah.
child is. And so, how did her situation shape? Maybe you can remind us what her situation was and how did everything end up?
Yeah, she needed a procedure because I forget the name of what it is, but it's just like basically the skull or something didn't like form.
Hmm.
So it's very dangerous for her. And this is non-viable. And she knew that it was non-viable. The doctors knew it wasn't viable, but there's nothing that they can do in that state. Some of these states actually, even though you've already lost your baby, you still have to carry the baby until your body pushes it out.
Right.
So some of the states, they don't even allow D&C. So your child could literally be deceased and they still can't remove it. Um, so I know that Florida has that no heartbeat bill,
Right.
is what it's called. That's not true, because even if there is no heartbeat detected, you still have to keep going because of the amount of times that it take, like the steps that you have to go through in order to get the procedure that you need. By that time, your body would have already pushed it out anyway. So I don't
Right.
even know why they call it no heartbeat bill, but
Well, and the thing is,
it's pretty sad.
people have to understand if you're in a situation like that where you have a baby that's died inside of you, or it's not viable in some way. There are two aspects to this that have to come into play that the Republicans don't consider. And that is first, the trauma of having to deal with this. Not only the trauma of having an abortion or a DNC, but the trauma of having a child that you're kind of planning on. This wasn't you just using
Yeah.
abortion as contraceptive. This was a tragedy for you. You lost a child that you were hoping to have. But over and above that trauma, it's literally dangerous for the woman to continue to carry it.
Yeah, she was here longer than what she was expected to be. And the reason is just like one night she went to the restroom and when in those states, the doctors or the nurses, they let them know like what signs to look out for. And it's like, if this doesn't happen to you, don't come to the hospital.
Right.
But if this, and this happens, then you can come to the hospital. So she was already aware of what it was that she should be looking for. And so she was telling me what was going on, and I was like, okay. And so the doctor that was seeing her the next day works at a hospital. So he has his clinic, but then when he has to do like deliveries and different stuff, there's a hospital that he works at. And this was so sad, but I was like, okay, we can go to the hospital that he works at so that I can page him. Like, we need to get there. And she was like, well, does he work at a safe hospital? Is it a safe hospital? And it just kind of like broke my heart. And I had to like tell her, like, all hospitals here are safe. There is no unsafe hospital. We're only going to this one is because I know that that's the hospital he works at
Right.
and he's familiar with your circumstances, because before she got here, like her chart, her medical records and everything, her OBGYN has sent that over. So he had all of the information. So I was like, it's safer to go there because they can page him. He's familiar with your case. So even though it's a little bit out of the way, that's where we should go. And she kind of like froze, and she just wanted to like be reassured that this was a safe hospital.
Right.
And I had, like, out of all the women who stayed here, I never once had somebody ask me that question. So I like went and like, okay, let me just go put a shirt on because I'm like in my gown, like let me put a shirt and some pants on and then we can just go. But I had to like go to my room and like just take a moment and like digest the question that she had just asked me. Like that is so sad when you're in an emergency. You have to try to map in your brain which hospital would be more sympathetic to your situation. But I had to let her know like all hospitals here are safe. She was like a nervous wreck on the way as well. She's just like the whole time, just kind of like looking around. She's kind of anxious. When we got there, of course, everybody was great, wonderful. She was fine, but she was just so worried about the hospital we were going to. Like she was super focused on that. And I'm like, no, they're all safe here. Even when I told her, she wasn't reassured of that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's tragic that somebody in America has to be fearful of going to a hospital to get something taken care of to save their life, possibly. And they have to worry about, is this a safe hospital or an unsafe hospital? That shouldn't even be a question in anybody's mind. And what people have to
Yeah.
understand with Old Soul too, I know her pretty well now, and some of that is creeped out in the show. Old Soul sits there like she's well put together and very
Mm.
steady, and but if I was one of those psychic types, I would say she's probably an empath because you really get emotional about some of these things that don't really have anything to do with you, but when you hear the stories and you hear the tragedies of these things, it really affects you. Now, I'm curious how you doing with that.
I think that we all feel like I don't know how it's like when you're in like battle mode almost, like you just kind of like do it and you get through it. I don't think that I will process everything until Roe is like codified and I no longer have to do this. Well, I don't want to say have to do it, but I no longer, I'm not needed to do it.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? I
Well, you
think at
shouldn't
that
have
point
to
I'll
do
be
it.
able to process it. Yeah, I shouldn't, but I don't think I'll process it until then. Like I have my moments. Always like when I'm upset and like really going through it, the first person I'll call is like my TT, which drives my mother crazy. But I'll call her because she's like, she's more calming and she's more comforting. My mother tends to see me upset and then she gets upset. And it's
Right,
like,
right.
that's not what I need. But
No.
for this woman who's here right now, the part of me that just like tugs on my heartstring the most is she is like super, super, like super close to her mother. And I just could not imagine not being there with my daughter. Like I couldn't imagine it at all. And
Yeah.
then a lot of people they'll ask like why the parents didn't come or why the spouse or the boyfriend didn't come. And it's not that they maybe wouldn't be able to, but you have to think about some of the stuff they went through before they got here.
Right.
Doctor's office, hospital stays, in and out, that type of thing, that costs money. So even though politicians are telling them you can't get the procedure that you need, they're forced to kind of like go back and forth and be in and out of the hospital. Somebody has to pay those hospital bills. Somebody has to like work and make sure that happens. And then when you're in a state, you can't like tell your job that this is what you're going through. You have to keep it a secret. So a lot of times, like the family, they do have to stay behind and work so that the woman can come here and they can keep things afloat at home so that when she goes back, she can still have some time off maybe. And a lot of times they do have to go back and go right back to work. Those
Right.
hospital and medical bills, those add up. And I don't think a lot of people see that part of it either.
No, I don't think they do. There's the emotional aspect of it, there's the legal aspect of it. But when you take a young couple, say they're 25, 28, or something like that, um, somebody like that can take a month off of work. And even if they could take the month off of work, they couldn't afford all the things that come into play. So these Republicans, over and above taking away constitutional rights away from women, putting them in danger, it's forcing them to pay out more money than they would normally pay. It's it's
Yeah.
really infringing on these people's lives. It's fucking up their lives over and above the abortion aspect of it. And the Republicans don't seem to care.
Yeah, every time they get a medical bill in the mail with a deductible, or maybe you saw somebody in the hospital that was out of network and you didn't know they were out of network, and you're paying full price for that, or maybe you're trying to file a claim through your insurance to
Right.
get them to pay for it. And it's like it's all unnecessary because on that very first trip there, when the doctor let them know what was going on and they knew what they needed to do, they could have taken care of it, but they couldn't. The hospital administrators told them no. Their attorneys told them no. The legal team for the hospital told them no. So you look at it, you have a couple going up against lawyers, administrators, staff, everything. But now in a lot of the states, because the doctors were pushing back so much, they don't like even allow them to go back anymore. Like
Right.
they will turn them away at the front desk. You have people in states like inside of hospitals calling ambulances to take them to another hospital because this hospital won't see them. So it's like maybe if I arrive in an ambulance, they will see me. And even if they do get to the back and they are seen, they could still be turned away. But now you have an ER visit bill on top of an ambulance bill, on top of like maybe like medication or antibiotics that you're given. It's a lot of stuff that they go through before they get here. Like this is like a last resort for most of them. So
You you had
it's
to
not easy, especially
you
this like how close she is with her mother. When I was at the hospital, like her mom, like I would text her mom and she would just immediately like FaceTime me. And she's like, I don't want a text message. I don't want to talk on the phone. Like, I want to look at you and talk to you. And it's
right.
just like, oh my God, I would have to like go visit her, like turn the camera on so her mother could like physically see her and talk to her. Like,
Right.
that's how close she is to her mother. And just having to be here and go through that without her mother and like having me like change her pads and stuff like that. And she wanted her mom here so bad. And I was like, hey, I couldn't imagine my daughter going through that and I'm not there.
Over
That's
and
what like tugged at me with her.
over and above all of that, you had to cringe and get a little sick to your stomach when you heard Donald Trump say, "Yeah, I'd be for keeping watch, monitoring young women to make sure they don't go out of the state to get an abortion." I mean, that if that isn't the epitome of like a communistic existence, I don't know what is. And Donald Trump's all in on that shit.
Yeah, not it kind of makes you wonder like when they say, because I know like behind the scenes there's like bills being introduced to get access to women's records and certain apps on women's phones and stuff like that. It's kind of like how far do you want to take this
Right.
to where every time a woman needs to leave her state, does she have to like, I don't know, maybe go to her Congress and take a pregnancy test before she leaves the state? Then does she have to take another one when she gets back into the state? Like, how exactly do they plan on monitoring this? Is it baffles my brain that they say it out in the open. They don't try to hide it. The bills that they're trying to introduce, they're not like sneaking it into legislation or nothing. They're just like flat out saying it. I see the push for that and the push for no fault divorce.
Right.
I think that a lot of them, they just don't want to see women have any say so. I know like in history, you couldn't vote like unless you were a landowner or
Right.
and then of course women couldn't own property at that time. So that automatically excluded us from that. And I do think a lot of Trump and other men like him, I think that's what they want. I think that's what they want to take us back to.
Well, whenever you're on, we have a reoccurring character on this show who's never seen, but everybody is hanging on their edge about the wild child. Now, this wild child, this is one of those clients you have come in, but this has become a much different situation. She comes from a
Yeah.
dad who thinks he's a sovereign citizen and is going to go to jail,
Ooh,
and a mom that is crazy religious. She's in a state that doesn't allow abortion. She comes to you for some help. Usually, these transactions or these situations take a week or two, and she's been there for two and a
yeah.
half months. And throw in the fact that she's a wild child and took off and ran or something one day, and she's going to make life
Yeah.
difficult just because you're not used to this. You've got a reasonable daughter, and you've never had to deal with this
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Tell us how she's doing at this point. And, in the previous show, you did tell us how she has this guy that she's kind of interested in who's chosen not to shower. And I said to you, I said, try to imagine this whole storyline. And this is why it's so popular, because it's
Yeah.
like a reality show. Here's a young girl, dad's crazy, going to jail, mom's highly religious, she's pregnant, she's got to come from a place where abortion isn't legal to stay with a black family, and she's as white can be. And she still somehow finds a boyfriend who doesn't shower. My God, nobody could write that.
When you say it like that, people might like, if there was like a camera crew here, people might tune in and watch it.
Absolutely. I would. But this
She,
is all
it's
true.
been
This is all
so much
true.
stuff. It's so much stuff for her. Like she keeps me busy. One of the things, like she volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club, right? And so she was like trying to figure out like the kids, like they get their reports and like their grades would be okay, but their behavior would be like horrible. And
Hmm.
so I was like telling her, like, hey, these is like ghetto kids. They love pizza. They're like, we could do something with some pizza. And so she was telling them like, hey, if you all I guys get E's every day for a week, we could do like a little pizza party. I'll show you guys how to bake pizza. Lo and behold, they all get their E's and they want their pizza party. So I have like my bread maker, but I make like pizza dough in there. So I make all the dough, put it in balls. She's going to volunteer. So we drop her off and she has like a little bag of flour, some marinara sauce, some mozzarella, some pepperoni. They're going to like make pizzas, right? So she's
Wow.
like, hey, can you come get me a little early? I might need help cleaning up. I get there, I go to the kitchen. It's flour every freaking where. Like, how did these are little kids? How did flour get up here? It was just like flour all over the kitchen. And I was like, oh my God. Next time pizza party, we just gonna have to like go on DoorDash and send them some pizza or something. It was so much flour. But she just kind of like keeps me on my toes in that way. But she asked me one time, she said, how did you know that you were gonna let me stay? So when she ran away and like Metro, they found her and her mother was like her dad had got arrested because he doesn't drive with insurance, he doesn't drive with a license, and he had some kind of sovereign plate on his car, which is like a magnet for the police. You'd be better off driving without a plate, but
Yeah.
anyway. And so she was like she was torn, like I don't know if I should like go here and deal with my daughter or like go to my husband. I'm like, go home, do what you need to do, because clearly you're not helping her. I promise you she will be okay. Like I will get her back home. That was like what I was telling her mom. So her mom goes home. So Metro finds her and then we go to pick her up. And what made me know that I wasn't going to send her home is she was like, well, can I just stay in jail? And they were like, no, you got to leave. And she was like, okay, fine. And I was telling her, like, this is Vegas. You can't like run away. You could literally end up on a corner somewhere. Like, that ain't what you want to do. And
No.
she was like, fine, I'll just do something to go to jail. And so she was like, trying to figure out a way where she can go to jail. And so
Wow.
one of the things was like a guard like sitting there when we were picking her up. And she was like, if I hit him in his jaw, I'm going to get arrested. And she was about to go over there and like punch that officer in the face so that they could arrest her and take her
Wow.
back in there. And I was like, when you did that, I knew that we were going to have to figure something out. Like at that moment, I knew I wasn't going to send you back home. And so she was like, really? I was like, yeah. Before then, I was like, gonna maybe like try to trick you to go back home. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was gonna get rid of your butt. And that moment right there was like, she's not like lashing out and being bad. She's like desperate. If
Desperate.
you're gonna
Yeah.
go punch a police officer in the face, you're desperate enough to like not want to go home.
Well, and
And so that's what made me like figure it out.
she's basically saying, I'm 17 years old, I'm pregnant, I have nowhere to go, so I'm just going to take the easiest route out, and hopefully they keep me in jail. And a 17-year-old girl in jail is not the most opportune thing. It's not a good
No.
situation. And thankfully, you're
Yeah.
compassionate, because other people might have seen that situation and go, fuck no, I don't want any of this. So she should consider herself lucky. Now, normally somebody would be there a week or two, and they would go on their way and go back to living their lives. This is a much different situation. This little girl's been there, when it's all said and done, maybe 2.5, 3 months. She's young.
Yeah.
She's never had any direction. She doesn't have good parents. So she comes to you, and now she does have some direction, some guardrails, some limitations. And she's feeling she's experiencing things she's never felt before. And we know kids want those guardrails and those restrictions and the support that she doesn't have at home.
Yeah.
Aren't you concerned
Yeah.
about her
Yeah.
when it comes to going home thinking, just stay here? I like Old Soul better than what I got fucking at home. And she should, because what's at home is crazy.
When I found out that she had like family in Arizona, like it was like a party going on, but I couldn't show her like how excited I was because I didn't want her to think that I was like excited to get rid of her. And I knew like in my mind, like, oh, yep, that's what we're gonna like reach out to her family in Arizona and like that's the route that we're gonna go. And then when I found out her like her auntie like couldn't get enough time off work to help her adjust, and she's like, I hate to ask you this because you've done so much already. Can she just stay a little bit longer? I was like, so then I just kind of had to accept the fact that I promised her that she would be okay. I promised her mom that she was going to be okay. She's going to have to be here for a while. We're just going to have to like make it work somehow. Once like I came to like terms with that, it was just kind of like I wasn't like parenting temporarily. I just
Right.
said, okay, so if she was going to be here permanently, like all the time, what would I do? And then I just started, hey, you need to get on top of your school. You need to make sure you find somewhere to volunteer. Like, let's just get a schedule going. It'll make it easier. So that's
I,
kind of what we started doing, and it
I
worked
just
out.
I just realized something, hearing about what went on there and how they keep you on the hook and you keep watching this wild child. And then I think about me saying, hey, old, do you want to do an extra hour on Sunday night? Just to make it easy for me. Old soul, you're a fucking mark. You're a mark. You need somebody to protect you. You need your daughter around you all the time. Everybody, hey, old soul, would you just do this? Fuck yeah, I'll do it no matter how it turns up my lifestyle.
I can say no, but I
Not
don't
very
know. I couldn't
often.
say no to her. I couldn't say no to her. I really couldn't. And then the thing with it was, I didn't think that she had like processed the fact that she had an abortion. Like
Yeah.
she just kind of like had her procedure and she was just like ready to move on with it. And I'm like, you acting like this don't phase you at all. Like, did you really not want to be pregnant that badly? Or like what was going on? And when I sat down and talked to her about it, she was just like crying and bawling and it affected her, but she does a really good job of covering it up. I mean, like a really good, you wouldn't even know it affected her the way that she acts. But I do think in certain like cultures or wherever she's from, it's kind of like you just move on from it.
Right.
Like you just keep going. You don't
Right.
talk about it, you don't deal with it, you just keep going. Like that is what it is. And it's kind of like she was always like the problem child. She was the bad one. She didn't like listen to her parents. She was always living in sin and all this stuff that her church was teaching her. And I do think like it's slowly unraveling a little bit, but she's not like quick to emotions when she's that wall is like there, but not always.
I
Cause she
need you.
does like when I'm working, she'll come sit next to me, put her head on my shoulder, she'll talk for a little bit. Um, a lot of times I look at it as her testing me. Like she'll like come in my room 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Can I stand here? Can we talk? Da, 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 da. Like like she'll just wake me up. But in my mind, I'm thinking she's doing that because she really wants me to like wait till the morning, go away. Like she's waiting for me to like push her away. So I'm always, even no matter how early it is, I'll get up and just talk to her about. Most of the time she don't want anything. Just make her some tea, she'll blab for a little bit, then she'll go back to sleep, or she'll just sleep in the room with me or whatever. But she does that.
Well,
That's the hardest part. To
old
wake
soul,
me up at 1 o'clock in the day in the morning.
old soul, I need you to own up to something and confess something. As much trouble as this girl has been, when it comes to that day she's getting in a car and leaving, you're gonna cry, aren't you? You're
Yeah.
gonna fucking cry.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be quiet because she's noisy. It'll be quiet. She listens to her music loud. She talks on the phone loud. And she's in the kitchen, she slaps the cabinets loud. Like she's just noise everywhere. So I think that she's like a really big presence. And I don't think she realizes how big of a presence she is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strength that later on she'll find that as like a good quality, not a bad quality.
Well,
Because
it
she's
is a
been
good
told to
quality.
like shut up her whole life, like shut up, be quiet, don't talk about this, fall in line, do what we tell you to do, you know, like that whole control structure. And that's just not her. But I think later on she won't look at it as a bad thing. As noisy as she is, it'll be like a good thing in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to clarify what you just said. You said she's a big presence. You didn't say she was a
Hmm.
big present because she's no gift here. But you're right. I've said that to my son about my granddaughter. She's really bold. She's in your face. She's talking all the time. She's bouncing off walls. Um, that is really a quality in somebody who can be a leader. And this
Yeah.
little girl that's staying with you probably had no idea that that was even possible for her. She's convinced she's the bad girl, she's worthless, and maybe you've opened her eyes a little bit to see that she does have a bright side if she just follows the right path.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people, when you see sovereign citizens on television, you just see like them. They're crazy, they're getting their windows smashed in and all of that stuff. I never thought about a child being in that situation.
No,
And I
neither
was
did
telling you
I.
off camera, like some of the stuff she told us was like, they would get pulled over by the police, and her dad wouldn't want to show ID. He wouldn't want to do this. He wouldn't want to do that. They would end up like towing the car, arresting him. And then she said the only good thing, like no police officer like ever made her and her mom walk home. They would always be like, yeah, we got to tow the car, but we can give you a ride home type of stuff.
Mhm.
He would write, I forgot what she calls it, but apparently like everybody has $1 billion in the US Treasury. And instead of like paying bills, he would like write that they could take the bill money out of his treasury account or whatever. And so their lights would get turned off, the heat would get turned off, power would get turned off. Like it was like that for her growing up. So it wasn't stable at all. But I do think her like going through those things, it had to make her tough. Like it had to
Oh
make her
yeah.
have a thick skin that, other people who are not going through that, so people in her church that don't experience that, they look at that as like a bad thing. But she doesn't have a choice but to be like that when
Right.
you don't know what's going to happen from day to day, depending on how wild your dad is with his sovereign citizen nonsense. So
Right. Right.
I,
Exactly.
I couldn't imagine.
Exactly.
We didn't have money, but we ain't have to go through window smashing and your car get towed. So you have to show insurance when you go to pick your car up. You can't show insurance. So you're just like, you know what? We got to save money so we can get another car because we can't get this one out.
Wow.
Or you wake up and your mom just brought groceries, but now all the food is spoiling because they turned the electricity off. That
Yeah.
type of stuff. So
Yeah.
sometimes you can look at her as a brat and all that stuff, but when you hear what she went through, you can understand why she is the way she is. She kind of had to be tough with those circumstances because
Right.
she explains that stuff to me. I'll be like, what? It makes no sense. But
No, it doesn't.
yeah,
It
that's where she came from.
All right, old soul, we are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. This happens to be the Old Soul after show, if you will. I don't know how it's going to be any different than the original show, but you heard the whole story. You know what's going on here. And the bottom line is we have Old Soul here, so it's going to be fucking good. Um, you know, with you, we talk a lot about the reproductive situation and how it is. And there's been a question out there, and I'm curious as to what you think. We have what we have going on in Florida. They have a 6-week abortion ban now. They just switched that. But the upside to this is the abortion question is going to be on the ballot in November. We have what's going on in
Yeah.
Arizona. And I think that's going to be on the ballot in Arizona. At least they're hoping to have the case in spite of, the draconian
It's on the
18.
ballot here too.
It's on the ballot with you in Nevada?
Yes, it's on the ballot in Nevada too. Yeah. We were those community events that I was telling you we were going to, we were raising signatures and stuff to get it on the ballot. So like those last couple of weeks when I was at the community events and all of that stuff, yeah, that's what our focus was, and it's on the ballot.
Well, people are suggesting, and I tend to agree with them, that by putting that question on the ballot in, say, Florida, that has a better than even odds of flipping Florida to be blue. And the
Yeah.
reason why is because if that question is on the ballot, that tells me a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals, a lot of people that,
Yeah.
whether they be Democrat or Republican, that support Roe v. Wade, can't do anything but help the Democratic Party. Do you see that the same way?
Oh yeah. I was looking at Texas as being more in play than Florida, but now I've kind of like flipped because of the way that DeSantis has handled that state with the students
Yeah.
and yeah, not only that, but the way that when the immigrants fled from Florida, the way that it left the crops, people were losing their jobs. Like it became like a desert town there. And then he comes out with this heartbeat bill, this 6-week bill, whatever he's doing. Like the way that he has run roughshod in Florida. And then on top of that, you put the abortion initiative on the ballot. And I look at that as like being more in play than Texas is.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people, what they don't realize is there were more abortions since the ban than there was before the ban.
Right.
And the reason for that being is a lot of women and girls, they didn't know that they had options or choices. But once that happened, a lot of different programs and people were like reaching out, getting their message out there. Their doctors knew, what to tell them, where to go, that type of thing. You'd be surprised how quickly people organized. Um, so it kind of had the opposite effect of what Republicans wanted, but it's just those rare cases that is the most heartbreaking
Yeah.
of all of them, because a lot of these women they're sterile after going through what it is that they go through, and that's the saddest part about all of it, is because previously these women would just be taken care of. They would go to the hospital and then they would go home and recover, but they
Right.
have to wait for a place in my home or a place in someone else's home to open up, and it puts them in dangerous situations.
What people have to understand is how big a thing is the prospect of Florida flipping. We've got
Yeah.
4 huge states in this country. We've got New York and California, which
Mhm.
are predominantly Democrat. We've got Texas, and Florida is really number 3. If the Democrats
Yeah.
somehow flip it to blue, at least in the presidential election, it's over for Donald Trump. Forget about all the other shit. That one state goes blue, it goes against Donald Trump, which would be ironic because it's his home state. But if it does, and it could, that ends it for him. You might as well not even go any farther on the election night if Florida goes blue.
Yeah. I think that's why him and DeSantis they make strange bedfellows, but I can see them like leaning on each other to maybe try and keep the state blue. However, Trump can't help himself but take credit
Yeah.
for the ban. He can't help himself but say how great it is, how happy and satisfied everyone is with it.
Yeah.
It does absolutely nothing but piss people off.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
think DeSantis tying himself to Trump, trying tying Trump to Florida, at the end, that could be what makes it go blue. And
Yeah.
you just couple that with the abortion issue. That's what's going to make it blue. The students are going to turn out in large numbers. Women are going to turn out in large numbers. Liberals, Democrats, and I do think a lot of the Republicans who are not like Trump supporters, I don't think they can make themselves vote for Biden for whatever reason, but I do think that they'll just stay home.
Right.
And then I don't think people even realize like the insurance premiums in Florida is like crazy. And a lot of people go there to retire and it's chipping away at their retirement.
Right.
So I think a lot of those people will turn out to vote as well.
Yeah, it's, you know,
Yeah,
you talked about Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis buddying up. That just shows how desperate
it's
they
so odd.
are, because I
Yeah.
can't decide which candidate is weaker. Well, DeSantis isn't a candidate anymore, and DeSantis can't run for governor again. DeSantis' political career might be over, if not saved by Donald Trump as a VP or whatever position. But since Donald Trump isn't going to win, I don't like Ron DeSantis' prospects after he's no longer governor. I don't know where he could go. Um, but it really does show the desperation of these two. They hated each other for a time, but they now see there might be some traction made by talking again, whether it be money or whether it be support. And it's sad. Neither one of them could save them fucking selves, let alone somebody else.
Mm-mm. And they built up this correlation of like these toxic alpha type of guys.
Yeah.
But then you have DeSantis refusing to take a shot at Trump because he didn't want to like piss off MAGA. But then you have all of these other guys over here who they want the bullying, they want the name calling, that's what they want, and you're not giving them that. So in their eyes, they're looking at DeSantis as being weak. And even when he goes to Mar-a-Lago, and you always say kiss the ring, I say he has to hold his pocket. I don't know if you know what that means,
I don't. Go ahead, tell us.
but like when you're in prison, right? And there is a guy that you take advantage of, like, hey, I'm going to look out for you, but you have to do these sexual favors for me. The way that you broadcast that in a prison is you take your pocket and you turn it inside out and you make them hold like the inside of your pocket. So
Oh, I
that's what
got
that
you.
means. So I always say like Trump makes these people come and hold his pocket. And that's where I get that from.
Well,
So
and
I think that
that's why I like having Old Soul here. She opens us up to other cultures, like prison culture. Thank you for that. Now we know about about prison culture. And I'm sorry to do this. I need to correct you. You said I always say go down and kiss the ring. Other classier people do say that. I always say go down and kiss the dirty diaper, because I'm always going low. Yeah. And which is a
that's probably kissing the diaper is better than having to hold his pocket though, because that's his bitch at that point.
I
So
got
they all
bit.
have to go down there and get turned out by Trump. But yeah,
For those of you that don't spell, she was saying bitch, so we know. she she won't. You know, you got to get Old Soul in the right mood and the right temperament, and then she'll go straight ghetto on us, which is entertaining as hell. Otherwise, she's calm and classy, but she has another side. Trust me on this.
yeah, I think that's how those fake alphas are looking at it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you Trump's pocket holder at this point. So that doesn't earn him any points with those people either. So you got to think about it. He pissed off the students. He's pissed off the minority vote. He's pissed off of the people trying to retire, but they can't afford insurance for their homes, and they're all preparing for hurricane season in Florida and all of that cool stuff. Um, Tourist is down since he done picked a fight with Disney. And then you want to take that reputation and think that Trump can come save it. But when you bring Trump's baggage and his reputation and add it on to that, it's not a good strategy. And then
No,
on
it's not.
top of that, you come with these archaic abortion bans and you're putting these women through. It's just so horrible what they go through. Like it is horrible. Like some of the stuff that I've seen is just it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
And
And
what
you just pissed off all the women as well. It's
what,
not
what
a good combination for Florida.
the negative part of this new learning, this new information that we learned. I have to avoid my wife listening to this segment, because if she hears this segment tomorrow, I'm going to be having to hold her pocket and and be made somebody else's bitch. Um, yeah, it's hell. My granddaughter may do it too if she got a grandpa hold my pocket. God damn it.
Not Judy.
Oh yeah, she'd do it. She is she's a lot like her grandma, for better or worse. Some days it's worse. But
I think they took two bad situations, right? And
right.
they put it together thinking it would work, and it just made a horrible situation. And I don't think that the Republican Party realizes how unpopular their stance on abortion is. I
You really
don't
think
think
so?
they realize it.
I mean, how could you
Yeah,
not know that? How could you not
I
know that?
think those who do realize that is bad, they take comfort in gerrymandering, kicking people off the voter rolls, low turnout in certain areas, limiting poll locations in certain areas. Like they take comfort in that. Like they're minimizing
Maybe.
the vote. I mean, look at Paxton in Texas. He's like the only reason Trump won Texas. Like he kicked like what 50,000 people off the voter rolls, then another 10,000 off. Like,
Right.
and he bragged about it. He said, if it wasn't for me, I don't think Trump would have won Texas. So they know what it is, but they take comfort in these tricks that they have. I don't think that they understand that women are more motivated than what they think. And then I do think that the people that's affected by this, it's a ripple effect. When
Yeah.
one woman experiences this, her husband, her in-laws, her family, her friends, like everybody experiences it. It's a
Right.
ripple effect. So they are pissing off women, and they are pissing off people who actually care about women, who's most men. It's just those few little stragglers that
Right.
act like they're above women. So
Well, you know, we've got the situation in Congress, and by the time people hear this, this may be already done and over. But we know Marjorie Taylor Greene is really pushing to vacate Michael Johnson from his speakership role. Now, here's what I know. If she does it this week, before this airs, I know she's not going to be successful at it. But that's just the essence of the Republican Party. They know they're going to lose. They know they're going to be embarrassed, but they can't help themselves. They got to double down and still do it anyway. And for my money, that's one of the things that cost them the election. Every time they turn around, there's something stupid that they've done, something that's embarrassing to them, and 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 they can't help themselves. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
that's what they get.
Yeah.
That is like two kinds of crazy. It's just it's too much going on there. And she is so like loud and over the top that people can't help but notice it. Like if she just had her little crazy self sitting in the corner talking to herself, that'd be different. Because that's kind of who Mike Johnson was before he was Speaker of the House. If you can find like some of like the archive footage of him and some of these hearings and different stuff that he was saying, he was like off the rails crazy with it. He just wasn't loud and overt with it. So that's
Right.
why he was able to slide under the radar. But she doesn't know how to rein in her crazy. She can't help herself because she crazy. Like she crazy, crazy. I don't like to use the R word, but I can say she was sitting in the back of the bus with a helmet licking windows. Like
Licking
she was
windows. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And the Republic, like, she didn't get in the seat by herself. They hyped her up. They elevated her. They made her relevant. So they can't, I don't know what they thought they could control her. I don't know if maybe they thought her crazy was like on a level 2, and then they found out that she was on a level 10. I don't understand why they didn't take somebody else with the same ideas, but who was like able to stay within her parameters,
They
because
made
that's not her.
they
I,
made the
I want
same.
her to bring that vote up. I want her to do it.
I do too. I do too. They They made the same mistake with Marjorie Taylor Greene that they made with Donald Trump. They got
Hmm.
what they asked for, and now they're sorry for it. And trust me, people are sorry that Donald Trump is in a position to be the nominee. But the thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, what's interesting, she got all this power, she had support, but now nobody likes her. MAGA doesn't like her. The normal Republicans don't like her. She thought, well, at least I have Donald Trump loving me. And she wants to kick Mike Johnson out. Yet Mike Johnson goes down to Mar-a-Lago, throws her under the bus by saying, hey, Mike's kind of a good guy. I don't think you should try to vacate. And she can't even read the room. Nobody likes her. Nobody agrees with her, but she's still going to push forward. And her premise is, well, I want to publicize who voted not to take him out. Well, everybody but fucking you. And she's too stupid to grasp that.
I know how crass it is to say this, but there are useful idiots out there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I do think that Marjorie Taylor Greene, she should have just been a useful idiot. You know what I mean? Like they should have used her to appeal to a certain part of the electric. They should have used her to get them on their side and casting those votes. But as far as like elevating her and putting her in a position of power, that's where they made the mistake. She should have just been like that useful idiot that got them to where they, like a stepping stone that got them to the next point. It looks like they learned that lesson when it comes to Laura Loomer with that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, she's a useful idiot. They're using her the right way. They should have like did Marjorie Taylor Greene the same way that they did her. But I
Well,
think
yeah.
it was a kind of a learning curve there. They're
They,
like, okay, we got our fill of crazy. We know how to deal with them. The next batch of crazy, we know what we need them to get, but we gonna keep them over there. So I do think that they can see that with some of these other people that are trying to come up. But with Marjorie Taylor Greene, they made that mistake and elevated her, and now they gonna have to get rid of her. That's not for us to do. That's for them to do.
well, and that's the thing about it is they did that with her, and they did that same thing with Donald Trump. I think if they
Hmm.
knew where this was going to end up, they never would have gotten on board with Donald Trump because they're not in a good position.
Definitely.
He was a
Hmm.
useful idiot. She's a useful idiot, but you get, and they thought, well, we're smart. We'll just control them and manipulate them. Republicans find out, well, we're not that smart because they went off rogue on this shit and they're running us around with a ring in our nose because they're controlling the show. That's what happened with Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And now you got these ignorant buffoons that are crazy leading the pack and
Yeah.
they're stuck with it.
Yeah. And the thing about it is they were able to split the party. So instead of making them irrelevant or like just delegating them to a small percentage of the party, like they split the party. So it's not like before where you kind of didn't need them, but now
Right,
that you've elevated them, you do need them. Because
right,
if you get rid of them, they're going to take their half of the party and leave. So when you're already a minority party and then you cut that in half, then you know you don't have a chance. So I think they tolerate them and they kind of entertain them to some degree, but they know that they do need them to kind of like maybe try to keep that other half organized. But I'm starting to see like a split within a split within a
yeah,
split. Like it's just
yeah.
fractured and it's cracks all over the place, and everybody has their own little like sectors that they go to. It's very interesting how they like fracture. You have like the QAnon conspiracy theory types, then you have like the white supremacists and the racist types, and then you have those who know better, who think they pulling the strings, but they really not. And then you have like those Mike Johnson types who are kind of like sliding up under the radar, and then you
Right.
have like Kevin McCarthy types. Like it's just all these different like fractures and sectors and pockets of it. And then to make it even worse, you got all these criminals that's stirring everything up. You got like the George Santoses and all these other people going around. Is Lindsey Graham, I think he will be like forever known for what he said. If we elect Trump, he will destroy the party and we will have deserved it. Like he will be forever known for like the greatest prediction within the Republican Party. He knew it
Yeah.
He said it. He talked about it. He even said, hey, this is what he's selling and this is what you're going to get. He knew it. He warned them. Every Even Ted Cruz warned them about this.
And, and,
Um,
and I wonder sometimes
that's the
about,
thing.
Lindsey Graham, kind of a Nostradamus here, predicting this. What he said was, if we elect him, he'll destroy the party and we'll deserve it. Now, we don't know
Yep.
why he's siding with Donald Trump. Do you think he just says, I fucking told you so, so I'm going to help you bring this motherfucker down. You do deserve it. Or is he just so caught up in Donald Trump for whatever reason that he can't step away from him? I mean, I always see Ted, not Ted, Lindsey Graham, what he should be doing when he's no longer a senator, which could be soon. When he's no longer a senator, he should start a singing career and do a cover of Tammy Wynette's "Stand by Your Man," because it didn't work out well for her.
Say that.
It's not going to work out for him.
I think that with Lindsey Graham, I think he made a deal with the devil. And
Yeah.
I think he knew he was making that deal with the devil. Like it was like a crossroads. And I think that once he chose his path, he knew he was not going to deviate from that. And I think he's one of those people who feel like he can't turn back. Because when anytime he's attempted to turn back, the backlash that he's got has been like
Yeah.
insane. After he said what he said on the House floor after January 6th, like they were ready to string him up right along with Mike Pence.
Right.
Even like now, when he goes to like some of Trump's rallies, he is still getting booed. They don't like him,
No.
but it's like you can't go back from that. I think that's what he feels like. He can't go back from that. And I do think that Lindsey Graham, I don't think that Donald Trump has information on everybody and he's blackmailing everybody, but I do think that there may be some information leaked if Lindsey Graham was to ever just go against Trump fully. The
Well,
only thing I don't think it should dawn on him that people only have power over you that you give them. So
right.
if somebody had like nude photos of me, like I'm that type of person, I'll post them myself. Okay,
Yeah.
so now they out there. Now you don't have any control over me. They out there now. So now what?
I
And
do.
I think that he would benefit from that. Just air your dirty laundry. Nothing is over your head anymore. And then you can just go on about your business. But playing this little cat and mouse game with Trump, that ain't gonna get you nowhere. I think he's that one person for sure that he feels like Trump could like destroy him. I think he feels like that.
I think we have to make a qualification here for any potential weirdos that are listening to the show. There is no nude pictures of old soul. Don't go looking for that shit because it's not there. She was giving an example. It's not true. Because if it were true, somebody would have already found that shit.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
We do a
I
show on
wouldn't run
that.
from it if it was. I wouldn't run from it if it was. Like that type of stuff, like holding something over my head or whatever, that is not, I like learned a long time ago. Don't get nobody that power.
You know
Just
that
don't do it. It
that
is what it is. It's out
that's
there now.
that's something my family always gives me shit about. I will tell anything. I'll tell anybody about anything about myself. You know, and people say,
Hmm.
why do you do that? They can come back at you. And I said, well, first of all, I don't give a shit. I'm not I'm not ashamed of it, you know?
I can see you saying that.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, it's all started, when I was 29 years old and I had testicular cancer and I had surgery for it. And of course, everybody goes, oh, that's the wrong
Yeah.
fucking area. That could make you look bad. I don't give a shit. I'll tell everybody. I still had a kid after the fact. But you're right. You give people power. Every time you hide something, you give them power should they find out. And
Yeah.
the right thing to do is, oh, you want to do that? Sure, I'll do it first. That's the
Yeah.
key. That's the key is if you're in an argument with somebody, don't you don't have to try to find a way to beat them down. all you have to do is find a way to take away their power. Because once you take away their power, there's no more fight. And I
Yeah.
generally try to do that because you don't get beat up as much.
Yeah. Could you imagine, like, if the Republican Party took away all of this power that they give Trump? Like, you say something bad about him, he gonna call you names, he gonna talk about your mama, he gonna send out a mean tweet, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you could do that. And I think, like, you can tell the adults in the room because they don't care about that. Like, you talk trash about everybody. But those who are really afraid of that, it's just like, just let him call you names. Like, you don't see Jack Smith like shivering in the corner and
No.
he just called him an a-hole. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I think, and it's like it really is like a bully at school when you think about it. Like, he just bullies them and they're all afraid of him.
Right.
And they don't know, like I said before, you just put you some quarters in a sock and go upside his head, he will leave you alone. But he knows that they are afraid of him and he just kind of like feeds off of that. Stop feeding the monster your energy and he'll go away. I don't understand why that, but they cowards. So that's why that don't dawn on them.
Well,
I
well,
get it.
well,
They
and the
just cowards.
thing about it with Lindsey Graham, if Donald Trump came out today and said Lindsey Graham is gay, he's a dresser, and he frolics with male prostitutes, we'd all go, yeah, we know. I mean, what are you fucking trying to hide? That's that's the worst hid secret in this fucking country, and nobody
It's
really
that secret
cares.
everybody knows about. Yeah, it's that secret everybody know about.
Right. And the thing is, most people in this country wouldn't care, but he seems to think the people in
No,
South Carolina would care if it were official.
I don't think like these people believe, or maybe they all like take stuff to go to sleep. Because I'm just sitting here like, how do they just like go to bed at night? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. When I go to sleep, I want to sleep. I don't want none of that on me. But I'm just like, how do they go to sleep? Or how do they just like worry about Trump 24 hours of what he gonna say? If you say the wrong thing, he gonna be mad. He gonna be talking trash. Like, I don't get that. I don't. And then you can look at his supporters not showing up in New York, and you can see that his supporters are just a bunch of keyboard warriors at this point. They
Right.
just talking trash online, and they'll call you and make threats and that type of stuff. But I don't see why they are still so afraid of him,
Well,
especially if they all like had a meeting in that little room and they all was like, you know what, we done with him. And this is what we are gonna do. Because if it's 50 of y'all against one of him, and then these people know attorneys, they know judges, they have people in their pockets where they could really bring him down, especially right now he weak. He don't have no money. His wife ain't with him no more. Like, they could really take him down if they wanted to.
right.
They just don't want to, I guess.
Well, people will come to me after doing what I do on TikTok and on the podcast. I go, aren't you worried somebody's going to find out your real name? And my real name's real easy to find out on the internet if you wanted to. I don't really care. But aren't you worried they're coming to your house? Fuck, Donald Trump himself can't draw more than 5 people to his criminal trial. How many people are going to come to my house in Minnesota or Georgia and try to find me? They're fucking gutless cowards. Nobody's coming. And that's what I've always said. You know, after that one time in January 6th, this whole idea of a civil war or another attack on that's not going to happen. They're cowards.
Yeah. And then when you think about it, the ones who were like some of the best organizers, those are the ones who got the most time. They gonna
Right.
be in there for some years. You
Well,
know,
the best.
they're not getting out in time for an election. And even if they did get out, the time that they spent in there right now, I don't think they're gonna be in a hurry to go back. Not for Trump.
Well,
Not for somebody who left them hanging, didn't give them pardons when he said he would. We have to fight like hell. What he really meant to say was, y'all gotta fight like hell.
right.
I'm gonna go watch this on television. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you know, the best organizers of this whole thing and the best funders of this were sitting members of Congress and women married to Supreme Court justices. Now, they're
I
not going to
know.
do it.
Wow.
They're not going to do it again because they're waiting on indictments from the first time. They ain't going to do it again. They're going to stay away from that shit. And as long as they don't have anybody with money or organizational skills, these dumb fucks from Trump land aren't going to get together. They probably couldn't put on a barbecue to invite people to.
I maybe it's just because I'm from Vegas, I maybe know a little bit more of mob history than other people, but the bosses, once they got into that position, they didn't do the dirty work themselves.
No.
Their underlings was the ones who was tasting their food to make sure it wasn't poison. They were the ones who were out there catching charges and going to prison, and they were the ones that were getting shot and ending up dead. It wasn't the guys at the top, the number one, two, and three. They were relatively safe. So these people, they don't see themselves as underlings. Like they think that they're more important than what they are, and that could be part of a delusion that they maybe tell themselves to justify their actions, which I don't understand how they wouldn't know they are underling.
You know,
Like,
you
how do
bring
you think that you are on Trump's level when you can't even afford to buy one of those Bibles? Like,
right.
you're not on his level.
Now, at the same time, you brought up mob history and stuff, and people will say that Donald Trump is like a mob boss. I've, I've always been interested in it too. I will tell you this: if Donald Trump was a mob
He talked
boss,
way too much to be a mob boss. He talked way too much to be a mob boss. And he on video camera talking trash, on recorders talking to trash. The fact that Michael Cohen was able to walk in there with a recorder without getting patted down first,
if he were a
mob
mob,
boss my foot.
if he were a mob boss, he'd be in a dark corner of hell with Paul Castellano and Fat Tony discussing what the fuck went wrong because they'll take him out. He's a weak
Right. And
motherfucker.
then he's like the only mob boss that don't have no street cred.
Yeah.
Like nobody expects to walk up to Trump talking trash and they think that they're going to get hit in the mouth for that. They
No.
don't. Frank Lucas would have shot him in his face. Like Trump is just going to be like, somebody go give me a Coke. Like that's the closest to trash he gonna get. There's nothing mob boss about him. He just tries to present himself that way. He's not scary. He's more funky than he is scary. He
You know,
might be more funkier than that child that was at the movies with us today.
maybe that kid will be president. The only thing Donald Trump could do if someone gave him shit is that Walt Nada would come up and pinch the guy or something. That'd be about the extent of any danger somebody might be in and calling out dumb fuck Trump.
I think that's part of he didn't have to like climb up that ladder and earn that position. It was kind of like everybody kind of just fell in line and handed it to him.
Yeah.
I just don't, I look at him as a dangerous person, but like would I personally be like afraid of Trump if I seen him?
No.
I wouldn't be.
I know I could take
No.
that motherfucker. I know I could take him.
You could take him. I could take him. And I got a bad knee.
And my wife, oh, she'd fuck him up. Donald
My
Trump,
daughter,
your daughter
my
too.
daughter would handle Trump without like not even sweating. Like
Yeah.
this girl owns a Glock. She's a pro at axe throwing and ninja star throwing. So I think she would just like do one of these real quick and that star would just get stuck in his throat maybe. And everybody would be like, what happened? And this little brown girl just moving through the crowd that don't nobody pay attention to. Don't let me
Yeah.
put that out there. Never mind.
Well, if I ever run for president, she'll be the head of my security detail because that'd be the only way I
She do
felt
a good
safe.
job.
She would do a hell of a job. Well, old soul, we're coming to the end. This has been a long session, in spite of the fact that the people are listening on Monday and on Friday. We've been here for a couple of hours, and I appreciate you coming in, as I always do, because it's
No
always a
problem.
good show. And I appreciate you hanging on just to make my life easier. And again, I'll say it
Yeah,
again, old soul, I'm going to say this, and I'm glad you are, but you're a fucking mark. You are a mark. You need something, just ask old soul, and she'll go, yeah, I'll do that.
I got you.
I
I
appreciate it.
know a guy that knows a guy that can get it done.
All right, exactly, exactly. All right. Well, thanks to Old Soul for all the work she's put in. Those I appreciate the time you folks taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be at home doing my regular thing. I don't know if I'll have a guest or not, but but I'll be there and we'll be doing probably some emails. There'll be a shitload of emails, so we have to do that. So have a great day.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
talk to you again tomorrow.